During the Triassic period, temperature differences between the equator and the poles were mainly different today. The supercontinent Pangaea and the reduction in the total area covered by the continental shelf led to widespread dryness. There is countless evidence of this climate having dryness, such as red sandstone shales that contain few fossils, the field dune, and deposits of cross-bleeding. During the Middle Late and Late Triassic, especially over large expanses over the water, led to monsoonal winds that brought seasonal precipitation. Overall, during the Triassic period, it was mainly warm climate, various upon volcanic activity to coastal areas. The climate was majorly warm. Conifers are a group of plants who had a widespread adoption of a range of environments. These plants likely shared interactions with early animals. Some insects evolved to feed on coniferous trees, which ultimately led to evolutionary compelling. Conifers provided rich nutrients from food as well as shelter for animals. They survived through the end Permian extinction event and continued to dominate ecosystems for the vast majority of time periods. Fossil evidence has proven that the dominance might be important for shaping Triassic ecosystem based on cycad vegetation. Mosses and liverworts were tied into the Triassic period, known as non-vascular plants that played important environmental roles. Their main purpose was to help stabilize soil and create habitats for other plant groups. Their reproductive strategy was to produce via spores, which were dispersed by wind or water. This allowed them to colonize new areas, which contributed to their ability to be prompt of disturbed habitats. In summary, mosses and liverworts had a major role in contributing to the overall diversity and functioning of the Triassic ecosystems. After the mass extinction at the end of the Permian, the Triassic saw the rise in pioneer plants. These plants were the first to recolonize and destroyed landscapes. This paved way for many more species of plants to develop over time and give us plant life that we can settle for in any climate. These plants also are special in how they build biological communities that gradually give away to other species. These plants are very important to ecosystems across the globe and still continuously help us humans with the climatic structure of a more distinguished species. During the Triassic period, ginkgos were not abundant or diverse as they would become later in the Mesozoic era. They established themselves as having unique characteristics. These plants had fan-shaped leaves as well as reproductive counterparts similar to their modern counterparts. Ginkgos had a similar growth pattern to modern ginkgo trees. They had fan-shaped leaves and produced seeds and structures that looked like fruits. Even though ginkgos were not very abundant during the Triassic period, fossil records have proven that ginkgo-like leaves and reproductive structure have been seen. Since the Triassic was characterized by a warm and drier climate compared to other periods, ginkgos were able to survive these conditions. Bennettland were a unique and distinctive group of seed-producing plants that played important roles in the ecosystem. They are very abundant that could adapt to air conditions. They are very similar to modern cycads and other gymnosperms, which have reproductive orders surrounded by modified leaves. Their extinction was not very clear. However, scientists have inferred that changing environmental conditions and competitions with other plant groups. They were extinct by the end of the Cretaceous period, leaving behind fossils that help us better understand plant evolution and the history of Earth. The Pangaea was a massive supercontinent that formed around 325 to 195 million years ago. The Pangaea began to break apart around 200 million years ago, which began forming the continents and oceans as we know today. The Pangaea's existence was advocated by a German meteorologist known as Alfred Wagner. His main theory was called the continental drift, which basically summarized that all the continents were joined together as one before drifting apart in their respective positions. The Pangaea was C-shaped as well as the volume of its mass stretching between the Earth's northern and southern regional poles. The member of the Pangaea was contrasted with a smaller continent known as Cathlasia, expanding beyond the eastern fringe of the Angara as in the central Siberian plateau. The rally of the various large land masses in the supercontinent led to subcontinental dry climates, which caused warm surface ocean currents and lots of higher latitudes. The Triassic period was the first time period of the Mesozoic era. It began around 252 million years ago and approximately ended 201 million years ago, followed by the Jurassic period. The Triassic period marked various changes throughout the Mesozoic era, including the evolution of life and the geographic allocation of the landmasses. A lot of major landmasses were collected into the supercontinent of Pangaea. Terrain climates were primarily warm and dry, even though the Earth's crust was idle. On the margins of the continent, shallow seas that got reduced to the area of the Permian gradually became more ample. Lastly, the Triassic period was on the incline of the largest mass extinction the Earth has ever experienced. The aftermath of this event was about 85 to 95% of marine invertebrates species as 70% of terrestrial vertebrate genre died out.
It's not entirely clear what caused the end Triassic extinction, although most scientists agree on a likely scenario that over a relatively short period of time, massive volcanic eruptions from a large region known as the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province released giant ash clouds that covered the Earth, causing a long-lasting winter. Because of this, over 90% of marine life died, and most land animals couldn't warm themselves or burrow underground, so over 70% of them died. Some animals that survived the mass extinction are alligators, crocodiles, small birds, and amphibians. Alligators and crocodiles were able to survive the catastrophic event because of their high metabolism and them being cold-blooded, as they are able to survive over a year without food or moving, and since they are cold-blooded, they were kept warm during the harsh winters. Birds were able to survive by burrowing underground for safety against bigger predators. Their feathers also acted as insulation as it kept heat trapped underneath. Amphibians were able to survive because, like alligators, they too are cold-blooded. But amphibians are very adaptable to their environment and can exist in microhabitats. Herbivores are entirely plant-based dinosaurs, meaning they would only eat plants and leaf-like foods. The most common and abundant food source, and one of the only primary food sources, was the cycad. This was a plant that was hard to digest, meaning that herbivores needed big teeth and an advanced digestive system. Their big teeth helped them chew the plants, and their digestive system obviously digested it. Some prime examples of herbivores are the Mosasaurus, Melanosaurus, Rheosaurus, and of course the Triceratops. Carnivores only ate meat, which meant their primary food sources were either fish or other dinosaurs. Unlike the herbivores, carnivores had big sharp teeth that helped them chew up and rip apart meat, and they also had a strong bite force so that it would be easier. However, despite carnivores getting a lot of nutrients from the meat of other dinosaurs, they were pretty small since carnivores rarely hunted each other. They had almost no predators, meaning they didn't need to evolve a bigger body for protection. In the word omnivore, there is a Latin-based prefix. That prefix is omni, which means all. This means that omnivores ate all types of foods. They're sort of combination between herbivores and carnivores. They ate both plants and animals, meaning that pretty much everything was a primary food source for them. While most omnivores were not very large, the Dinoceras was the exception. An ornithomium sort, like the Gallimimus and the Struthiomimus, Dinoceras was the biggest of them all, reaching up to 36 feet in length and weighing over 6 tons. Generally, grassy regions with vegetation were optimized by the herbivores, as they only ate cycads and other leaf-like plants. Carnivores were also popular and lived in the same type of regions, as the carnivores would prey on the herbivores and kill and eat them for food. The ocean was packed with aquatic dinosaurs, which were mostly carnivores. The air was filled with flying bird-like dinosaurs that were mostly carnivores. The trees were also filled with flying dinosaurs, as they would put their nests up there to hide them from other dinosaurs on the ground. At the time, dinosaurs were huge, most of them at least. The dinosaurs at the time would range from a tiny Bosanosaurus that would only grow up to about a meter long, while other dinosaurs like the Ichthyosaurus, which could grow up to 25 meters long and weigh over 80 tons. But paleontologists suggest that the reason why dinosaurs were so big was because big bodies helped to regulate internal body temperatures or let them reach new sources of food. But paleontologists also suggest that dinosaurs evolved to have bigger bodies to protect them from predators. Aquatic dinosaurs were dinosaurs that lived underwater, kind of like fish or sharks, but these were more shark-like as they were big with giant sharp teeth that helped them kill and eat fish. They had the surface for air so that they didn't suffocate. Some aquatic dinosaurs, such as the Ichthyosaurus and Plesiosaur, were able to survive in water for so long because they had evolved specialized adaptations that allowed them to breathe air efficiently while remaining underwater for extended periods. Obviously, aquatic dinosaurs could not survive above water as they would dry out, lose their moisture, and die. Semi-aquatic dinosaurs are a lot like the aquatic dinosaurs, but there was something special about them. They had the ability to survive both underwater and on land. Still, they could not breathe underwater as dinosaurs did not have gills, but they were able to swim efficiently and roam land efficiently. They had evolved to hunt underwater and above water. The Spinosaurus, for example, would hunt fish underwater and hunt other smaller dinosaurs above water, and it could swim very well and fully submerge itself. The Spinosaurus was also the largest carnivore and possibly the largest ever land-based predator ever known.